Hello. It's loud.
Awesome, guys. Welcome back to Kingdom Partnership Podcast. Today is a special day. It's a different day, just. We are in a new studio. We're changing seasons. The seasons have changed. Although you see a little bit of sun right now, as of literally 15 minutes ago, it was gray and drizzling. So change of seasons, change of scenario. But the heart is the same. God's here. And I have a very special guest. Two special guests, friends, brothers, sisters, role models, co-work, everything. These guys are family to me, and I love them. So let me introduce to you the one and the only, Liz and Josh Nolz. Everybody, let's go. Let's clap it up for the Nolzes. We love them. Hi, guys.
Hi.
How you guys doing?
Good.
First time doing a podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're
excited to be here.
Yep. I'm so blessed that you guys are here. I like to always have a little bit of fun in the beginning and put my guests on Front Street or ask them some questions. And I was doing some research, and I researched Josh Nolz. And
Did you see my MySpace account?
There was a MySpace there, but we're not going to talk about the MySpace. Pulled up the Josh Nolz. And it's awesome because there's a Wikipedia on you, brother. I didn't even know. I've known you for so many years. Right. But I didn't know that if you Google Josh Nolz, you see this. You see, I'm going to butcher this city, by the way. Onancock. Onancock, Virginia, is a former American midfielder. He was a member of the United States national beach soccer team at the 2007 Beach Soccer World Cup. Let's go, man. That's so awesome. So I know Josh. I know you did this because we played soccer before, but you Google him and there you are.
It's crazy what happens when you're from a small town.
Yep. Like, Tell us about the World Cup. Like, what was that experience? Like playing soccer professionally for the United States of America.
Yeah, it was the coolest experience ever.
Yeah.
It was in Brazil, and they build basically
Rio.
In Rio. Yep, and they build a stadium on the beach, and it's not just
so
bleachers,
cool.
like a proper stadium.
Yeah.
And I think I maybe even shared this story with you before, but it was like, the first game I ever played in was against Brazil in Brazil. Right.
Oh, yes.
So
yeah.
they played our national anthem and couldn't even hear it, right? Because people were booing and stuff like that. And then they played Brazil's national anthem, and halfway through it, they cut it, and the crowd finishes it. Like, I'm like, goosebumps. I'm like, this is amazing. But I'm the type of person that will step on the court with LeBron James. Like, I know you're way, way, way better than basketball, but prove it. This is who I am.
We're here. We're playing the same sport. What's up?
You got to beat me. So I literally went into that game with the mindset that we can beat Brazil.
Yeah. At home.
Right?
World Cup.
And they were like when it came to beach soccer then.
They are it.
Yeah, they still are, one of the top teams. And I'll never forget, I scored literally like 20 seconds into the game, ended up scoring a goal, went absolute nuts in the camera, like nuts.
Brazil,
and,
we're here.
Yeah, and I remember looking at my teammates being like, let's go, like we got this. And I wasn't getting that vibe back.
They're like, you've unlocked the beast.
The final score was 13-2. I'm like, I didn't know. But it was an amazing experience.
They were not amused.
Hey, you are on the books of history to say Josh Nolz scored against Brazil.
Absolutely.
Literally, it's on Google.
Got to play against Mario in that game.
Oh my gosh.
Ask our kids. They came home the first time I think August was in 3rd grade, that he had access to Google in school.
He's like,
he came home from school and he was like, did you know that I looked you up today? And he said all the things, and he was like, you never told me. And it was like all these things. He's like, I told all my friends, I found my dad on Google. He's like, who else can I search? I was like, oh boy.
I was like, oh, we're about to see the MySpace. We're about to see everything else. Let's go. And I found a cool picture of you. I don't know if What team this is? The Mariners, maybe? I think I searched.
No, that was after the Mariners. That was when the Mariners folded. That was the Piranhas.
The Piranhas.
It was
Finding Nemo.
Yeah, it was like the PDL. I think it was a Pro Developmental League. So they had basically young guys that were going to be pros, and then older guys that had retired.
Oh, okay. So it was like a mix. Yeah, because you see some young. I mean, you look young there. How old were you there?
I was probably like 28.
That's post frosted tips.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that's what you were going to pull
The
up.
NSYNC frosted tips.
Oh, absolutely.
My
Like dip
freshman
your head
year.
in bleach. Oh, yeah.
Let's
yeah,
go.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh can definitely pull that off easily.
In my mind, I could. Whether I did or not,
I think I remember seeing that as I was researching it.
Oh, man.
And then I was looking through your Instagram, Lizzie, and y'all been married 12 years.
Yeah.
July 23rd, 2011.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I saw the wedding invitation. You guys look so cute together and all that stuff on one of your Instagram pictures. So tell me, Liz, 12 years married, what is a wisdom for people that might be engaged in the future or looking to get married?
We're still learning. Always. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we've been together for almost
14-ish.
15. Yeah, 14. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would say the best advice for I'll say this is more for a wife.
Yeah.
But it could go both ways.
Right.
Is to take your hands off the wheel when it comes to your spouse and let God do all of go to God first instead of your spouse first. Because I think I would have learned that years earlier on, that takes a lot of the pressure off of God's in control, and if God's first, but I'm not. There were definitely years I was not allowing. I was no, I'm first. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
God told me to tell you.
Yeah.
God actually told
Holy
me.
Spirit.
Yeah. God actually was for this for me to, and it's just allowing God to be God and is huge. Yeah.
I think I've seen that in relationships lately. I've been reading this book. You guys probably know. I told you it's How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And something, I think he was Christian, could be wrong, but something he says there, because whenever I read a book, even if it is Christian or not, I'm like, where's Jesus in this? Where's God in this? And in it, there's 3 principles. I've literally only read maybe 30 to 40% of the book because I go back to the first 3 principles and I'm like, this is the gold. I need to apply this every day in my life. And principle number 1 talks about don't criticize, complain, or condemn the person that you're speaking to, even if you're as a leader, I've thought that I'm here, you're doing so good, but this is why you're failing. And then that's not even the way. You're still sort of indirectly criticizing them because what happens is the person gets defensive and then you and then nothing's learned, nothing is achieved. And so principle number 2, after you apply that one, is genuinely appreciate them. Appreciate them for who they are, where they're at, what they're doing. And then the last part, which is the hardest that I struggle with, but when I applied it to the best of my ability, I've noticed people changing for themselves on that thing that you might have been, that I was praying about. So it says, arouse curiosity in that person. And so in the book, he gives an example of these parents and their daughter who's going into kindergarten or pre-K for the first time. She's throwing a fit the night before. I'm not going. Why? No, I like home. I like mom. I like dad. And the first instinct of the dad is dude, you're going. I paid. I'm dad. You're going. And he was he remembered the book or Dale Carnegie was his coach or something. And he's all right, what do I have to do? Okay. He's okay, honey, I love you. We'd love for you to stay. And, we'll work it out. You're the best, da-da-da. And then he talked to his wife. He's how do we arouse curiosity? And they're well, kindergarten's fun. Let's do things that we did in kindergarten. So then they got in the living room and were hand painting and drawing and writing out letters and script. And then the daughter just comes around and goes, Mom, Dad, what are you guys doing? It's we're just doing things that we do in kindergarten. And she's well, that looks fun. And he's oh, yeah, but you don't want to be part of this. You said you don't want to do it. And she's no, I want to go now. Right. And then, so it was a prime example of as a child, you're oh, great. You're aroused naturally because if you for yourself go that looks cool, I want to do it. Versus you got to do it, finger pointing and then you don't change. So I've tried to apply that and I reread that part of the book over and over again because I'm and I think he even says it in the book. He's when you feel you failed, reread this again. Because until you get it cemented in your head and try to apply it always, you're good. So
I will add one thing.
Yeah.
Now that you just said that, the other thing I would say the other thing I would say for someone going into like dating or premarital is to have some people around you
for sure.
that can have honest conversations, because there are too many, especially Christians, like where you're having conversations and a lot of times you don't know, especially if there's been trauma in your past, like what's there, what's going on. And it maybe hasn't come to the forefront yet, but that's a lot of times what settles in, and having some people who have, and I know that's like our passion with marriages and friends of ours and people, is like being able to say like, hey, here's like was our past. Here's what we went through, like from abuse to other lanes with our lives, and how it did not, we could have, I'd say 5 years, could have been very different if we would have had someone say, hey, if these are some things you guys walked through, like before you even met, like what baggage are you carrying? I remember we met with a marriage like therapist, I don't know, maybe like year 5. And he said the best thing to us, he was like, I want you guys to go pack the bags in your house, like, and bring them down, put them at your front door. And then, and our kids were really little. But he's like, and then I want you to like hand them to your kids. And like, that's if you don't deal with, and for us, it was like stuff that happened like, before we even met each other. But like stuff that happened. I mean, I was 27 when I met him. Like we weren't really young. Right. So we had lived life
How we look at it, that was actually really young.
It was, it was.
But now people
nowadays,
are getting 19, 20.
And so I think that's the biggest thing. Like when he said that to us of like having people be able to say like, hey, okay, awesome. I love that you're in love. I love that this is the future.
Right. Have fun.
But let's go back some and like go individually of like, what do we have to sort out or like talk through therapy, whatever that is now, because that's it is going to come up when you get married, have kids. Magnified. And when he said like, hand those bags to your kids, we both went like, that's your baggage. You just, and it's generational.
You were like, whoa.
I mean, it's and
real.
Then we both saw that our parents are not handling or not dealing with like certain things that like, again, generationally, you might not know. But like had handed down to us that we were like, this stops here. So we're going to like have what no one's perfect. So our kids are we have a therapy account for them at some point, right?
We're putting the funds in there. Like, we're getting wherever we messed up because therapy. God's gracious.
Totally. But
we're
like,
sending them here.
But as much as God's in it with us, like you have to do the practical. And that's, I think, like when I say like, yes, God, like put God first, have God like, let him be God, but also there are a lot of practical steps that like it takes a lot of work and putting that in there to have like the great marriage and great sex, great, all the things that God wants for your marriage, but like you have to actually have those conversations.
I love it. That is so powerful. And I think it's a perfect transition to the question I was going to ask just now, but it's just so good. Like I'm picturing that image of like my future kids, your kid, I know August and Brax, and I'm just like seeing a big away travel 2 luggage bags and just hand them over. They're like, this is so heavy. Like this is such a crazy image.
It's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch. Like visualize that, and internally you're like, shift, gotta change. So I love that picture that you just painted. But yeah, the question I wanted to ask you guys, that is the first one I wanted to ask you guys, because you two have been this for me. We've been this for each other. We've been through ups and downs, like everything. And I love that. And distance to close distance, everything in between. Just like, what is your take on relationships, on circles, on friendships, the importance of it, the strengths of it, anything? Like, what is your main takeaway from like relationships and doing life not alone, in a marriage, not alone, in a community, not alone, anything, brotherhood, sisterhood, all of it?
Yeah. I mean, I'll let you go, but I would start by saying like relationships is everything. It's everything. And never, it's like as you get older, you start to admit the things that my parents were right. Like I remember,
every day, it's like a daily revelation for me right now. I'm like,
like I remember, having friends as I got into, late middle school and in high school, and it was like, you can't hang around with those people. You can't hang around with people. And I'm like, why? Like, they're fine. They're
fun.
Yeah. It's so true, though. Like, you are.
They're five.
You hang around with. You are who you surround yourself with. And, like, if you're not being intentional about, like obviously you love everyone, but, like, if you're not being intentional about who your friends are, who you're allowing to speak in your life, who you're allowing to like be in your inner circle, if you will. Like if they're not people that are constantly pushing you forward, you're in the wrong circle.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, but
You'll be in the same place in 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or 20. Yeah. I think we talk about relationships a lot just because they are like really important to us. Yeah. And I mean, we knew that individually before we were together. And then like, we still have some of our best friends. Like when I still have, it's funny, Liz and Beth, that like we have known each other since we were like 5, 6, and 7. And we've lived all over the world and like still have come together. And same with him from some of his childhood friends. Like we're still meeting husbands, going to weddings, kids, dealing like, you know, it's almost been 30 years. Yeah. And so we still have those friends that like, and then as life expands and grows from like all different seasons and layers of life. But as you get older and as you, life gets more full, I'll say, like it becomes, time just speeds up. Like it's not slowing down.
You don't get less time.
No. And we all have the same amount of time in the day. And we talk about this a lot. Like what are the most important things? And like, but in being so intentional with relationships takes a lot. Like, especially at our stage of life with like, I mean, kids and, you know, literally 6 days a week of activities. It's like, hey, how do we find space to like host, have people over, build into friendships, like be intentional in those, even just like conversations, right? Like in a 20-minute or like 20-second voice note to a friend of just like, hey, I'm thinking about you today. I don't have time. I know. You know, I voice note you too.
I only voice memo guys, only. To be intentional, honestly.
Yeah. But it allows the gap to be shorter, like in the times that you talk, because like who is setting aside an hour, right, for some like conversations. But I think with relationships overall, it's we've just seen like you need those people, like you said, it's who you're around. Yeah. And there have been different people in different seasons that if you're not growing, you're staying the same. So I think the biggest thing we've learned and are continuing to learn is like when to walk away. And that sounds harsh.
Yeah. It's real
but some friendships and relationships end, right? Like how many people stayed with the boyfriend or girlfriend for too long, right? Or whatever it was.
Everybody.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
Right.
Not everybody.
So it's like, but like when is it time for that? Just like in a job or anything else, like if the door is not, if the season's ending and you stay too long, like you feel it and you know. So I think for us, it's been like, hey, we've always been, and I was raised like this, like tried to surround ourselves with people that are, ahead of us in a lot of ways.
That's what I was going to say.
And my dad would always say to me, like, be in the room and be with people that are way ahead of, are smarter than you, better at you, better than you,
wiser,
like,
age.
but everything. And that doesn't mean, I mean, I have great friends. It's not age, like it's experience. And so for us, it's like having people that have been, like are encouraging, are speaking life, are pointing to Jesus, that can hold us accountable. That's a huge thing. Like having some people in our lives that are like, hey, you said you were going to do this and like, you're not, or like you said God called, like whatever it was, and that are okay with calling us out, like, which is uncomfortable at times, or whether it's in our marriage or as parents, like, wherever that is, to have those people calling us higher constantly is, you know, and it doesn't make the people that when the season ends, it's not wrong, right? Like those people aren't bad people. It's not, it's just that and sometimes like I have great friends who we have grown in down different paths, still going to be great friends, honoring of like the seasons that we were really close in. However, we're growing at a different rate now, or 100%. Like a different place. And I think that's where
different season.
I think that's the biggest thing in relationships is like, as we've gotten older, going like knowing when to let go and walk away versus like when we were younger, holding on to everything. Like if that makes sense.
I think, go ahead.
I just think it's important, like with friendships, like she was saying, is you have couples as a couple, like we need to have couples that have gone before us, that are ahead of where we're at, that have been married for 20 years, that we can
have
be
older
like,
kids,
what did you do?
Empty
How
nesters,
did you do this? Like
wisdom in the elderly.
Absolutely. And then to have relationships where we're that for other people, right? That we can invest into these people that are just got married, they're young, and then also to have relationships that are
side by side.
Side by side, right? As you're doing life together, and as you're going through the same exact stuff together, to be able to bounce stuff off each other is just, it's absolutely.
And that's really rare.
Huge,
like that's something we actually talked about coming down here after that. Is that question is like, there are people we have in our lives, and we're blessed to have that. Like Josh has his friends, I have friends, but then and we have people together. But when you find like and it's very few, but like when you find that, it's very rare to have couples that like it's an iron sharpens iron, and as couples is very, it's just really special and something like to curate and like you want to protect in such a way. And then as families, when you have kids, it's the same thing. Like there are friends I still love, but I'm not going to hang out with their kids. Like, or we parent very differently, or it's just, but it doesn't mean we still don't love them. So maybe we're like, hey, we no longer hang out as families. We do dinner, or we grab something else. But it just looks different. But as families, it's important too, because the kids see us, number one, opening our home or inviting in other people. Josh is really great at this. Everywhere we've lived, like I'm the extroverted introvert. He is the extrovert. Like, and where I'm like, cool, yeah, now I'm done. Like when I'm done, I'm done. And but everywhere we've moved, like whether it's through sports, through what, like he can talk to anyone about anything and connect in a way that like so we have found God has brought clearly in our lives different families, whether it was Virginia Beach, our move to New Jersey, to Florida, to here, that have been through, and I've watched these dads and grown men like be of families that we're friends with, whether it's sports or whatever, just really that's what I'm looking for. Like gravitate towards
Josh,
him. And they're not Christians, most of them. And it's a way that like we have made such great friends and our kids get along. I end up getting along with like with their wives. And it's just opening that space that
that's so good, Liz.
That I think is like what God wants us to do at the end of the day.
I had two thoughts coming in. First thought I'm going to touch on was the word that you used, uncomfortable, because we were literally talking about it this Friday. Today's Friday. This morning about just the word that I heard. Like we have Friday Sanctuary. We talked about on the podcast before, where with our close coworkers and just go to God and pray as men. One of our guys who's going to be on the podcast one day, my roommate, he was like, I just want to stop being comfortable. And that's what I heard before he even said that from God as he was speaking. I was like, stop going to comfort. Like, stop being comfortable. And I think that is one of the number one, like, take the legs away from what God's called you to do or asked you to do, because you're comfortable. You're comfortable in that relationship that feels the same every day, toxic or not, or you're not even toxic. Yep. You're like, good, but that it's like, hey, the season is ended. You need to go here. You're comfortable in your workplace. You're comfortable in the gym. You're not even pushing yourself anymore. You're comfortable in your relationship with your wife. You're comfortable in this. And it's like God's telling you to start being comfortable. And in the uncomfort stuff, things grow so much. Yeah. And that's the last season I've been in the last like 3-4 months. And I'm just like constantly uncomfortable. I'm like, this is so weird. I'm uncomfortable in this chair, in this podcast, and, but it's just, I've just been seeing God do so much. Yeah. And so it's like, we said it today too. It was like, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but on the flip side of it is like, wow, why didn't I do this earlier?
Yeah. Like, absolutely.
Why didn't I'm so dumb to have not listened. And then the second thought I had about people gravitating towards Josh, one of the things that I appreciated from Josh during our New Jersey stint in life was when we played soccer in New York. And it was my first time playing. When we dominated. But it was my first time playing, and I was still not baby Christian, but I was I'm trying to think if I got saved 2016. It's probably like 2018. It's like 2 years later. So still baby Christian in my opinion. And I was always struggling with that fact of like, can I be competitive and love the Lord? Yes. Because I hated my pride and my I'm like, I gotta win, like rah attitude. I'm like, dang, this is really negative, and just like fighting with all that. And then seeing Josh like play as a teammate and then us dominate but still be a light. Right. I was like, oh, you can be. Right? Like you're supposed to like God's also a competitor. Like, he's a jealous God. He tells all the other gods.
There's righteous anger if you're losing.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, see, that's my point is that extroverted of himself of like, he is who he is, extroverted, and also being a light made me gravitate towards you during that season of soccer, which was awesome. And we just dominated, so it was fun.
No, it was fun. One thing I wanted to say about like with friendships, because I don't know, I think you kind of mentioned it, but like the importance of being like intentional with your friendships and intentional of who, because like we said, you don't get like you think as you're young, you're like, oh, my life's busy. It does not get less. It gets so much more busier. Like when you had kids and just like moving and all the aspects of different aspects of life, and like being intentional about like who you decide to allow in your life, and take up your time,
real
right?
estate,
And and who you decide to invest in, right? And spend time in and talk to. And I think intentionality in friendships and relationships is just, you have to be intentional with it. And like as a person, I would not say that I am, like she's saying, oh, you're meeting people and you're connecting with people. I'm drawn to not the Christian guy, not the Christian family. I am drawn to the person that is genuine. If I feel that you have a genuine heart, I don't care if you're a crackhead. I really don't. I'm like, I can mess with you. I like you. You can be in my world. Because I know you're genuine.
You're drawn to the good
real.
dads
The real,
too. Like the real, like you see a guy being like loving his family and his kids, even if he's not a Christian. Like that is something that's
huge.
That's
huge
for
me. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're called disciple the world, make disciples of everybody. So whatever it looks like, if we were on our own little comfortable bubble of just talking to Christians and just talking to like everyone who's come on this podcast has been Christian, but there's gonna be non-Christians alike that could disagree with me and talk to. I'd love them and talk to them. So
absolutely.
I love everything we're talking about. Relationships is huge, and I think you guys touched on it, but I'm forgetting the quote, but essentially the 3 spheres of life that you have to have, like someone pulling you up, your mentor, someone across from you, and then someone that you're always investing into.
And I think just to touch on that really quick is what we've talked about for a few years, because we, I don't think we learned it at onsite, but like it was basically the spheres of like Jesus, of like the center. So if God's at the center, and you go out circles from that. So like the center is, God, Jesus, and then you, but then Jesus had John, then Jesus had, he had 2, then he had 3, then he had the 12.
Yes.
But like, and then you can go outside of that. But for us, it's like, hey, every marriage is not like this, not better or worse, but like we started as like best friends. Yeah. So like there are a lot of people who might or might not, but like at the end of the day for us, like the relationship is God and then us. So like having that friend, 100%. That one friend, like Jesus did with John, that you can tell anything and everything to. Like be there with, process with. I tell a lot of stories and lots of details. Josh's like, are you done? And
I love it.
But like we're still there. So he knows he married a verbal processor. So
I'm the same.
Yeah. But then outside of that, right? Like
listener.
Yes.
You are a really good listener. And like the 3 or however many 5 outside of that, like who are those people that are in that, like you said, are they the people, pulling you up? Are they at wherever they're at? But like you have to have those people that you are vulnerable, transparent, that the bottom could drop out tomorrow in your marriage, in your job, your life, your kids, and health. You have to health, anything could come at you, and you're able to pick up the phone and like those people. Yeah. And then and then you're that for them, and then the layer outside where it's like those are the other people around you that can support. You may not talk to day to day, maybe yearly, maybe a coach, maybe like someone, but like having those layers is so important in relationships and we try and teach our boys about that. Like, hey, you just can, like, we pray for one great friend each year of school. Like, and it's one person to connect with, like, cause they see, right. In younger generations, we were brought up, you're like friends or like 20 of them, like, and it's like,
I had like 1,000.
Right. Exactly.
I was like, this is what life is, right? You're supposed to be friends with everybody.
Right.
No.
Right. And you have to teach how to be a friend.
Yes.
Like and that's like a big a big thing. So I just
I
didn't
love
want
that. No, that's great. Yeah, I have quickly learned my parents were right and all that stuff like you said, because I was like, I'm friends with everybody until I'm friends with 3 people. Like, thank gosh for just 3 people.
Right.
But yeah, another question that I had for you guys, and we're kind of talking about investing in people is definitely one of the ways. You know, the name of the podcast, Kingdom Partnerships, relationships, partnerships, that's that portion, but then the kingdom, right? The kingdom of heaven here on earth. How are you guys in your day-to-day or in your vision or goals investing God's kingdom here on earth? You know, your family, for example, or the church, or financially, or big dreams. What is it like that the Nolzes are doing to bring the kingdom here on earth?
Okay.
Like I said, I'm a good listener.
Yeah, I think as a family, like first.
Love that. Start there.
Yeah, I think like if our marriage honors God first and like our family, God's at the center, like with our kids, it's like we've always said, Josh has this thing of like us 4 and no more. And it's not to be exclusive.
Yeah.
It's to be
intentional.
Like, it's intentional and it's inclusive, like of, hey, like no matter what happens, and obviously we've moved a lot for their ages as well, of going like, no matter what happens, where we live, where we are, like what we go through, friends are going to come and go, and we want to have intentional friends, but like also we'll always be here.
Yes.
So like the good, the bad, the ugly, we've tried to create a safe space for them to talk about all of those things. Even, you know, I heard a few years ago someone say like, if you can't like yell in a respectful way, don't let your kids like get angry with you. Like Jesus had righteous anger. Right. So like if they can't, then how will they ever like wrestle with God?
Yeah.
Like, and know that like God's not going to be mad at them for like being like angry with God.
Yes.
So like we've tried to open a lot of that by teaching like emotional intelligence is huge in our house. Like, and so I think like that for family, and that's all comes from God. So like how we teach them about their emotions are all from God, but like you can't act this way. Yes, anger comes from God, but like you can't act that way or like this way or.
It's okay to have that emotion.
Right.
But how you react to it.
Yeah.
Right. And how you
what was the outcome of that?
Right.
Yes.
So right. Good. And that's like constant. I mean, we're adults. It's constant for us too. So it's like.
So for them, it's amplified.
Right. Yeah. But so much of family is caught, not taught. Like, so they are like constantly have us on a reel that like we don't realize we have on our parents that like when they're our age, they're going to be going back and like, but they did this, they said this, they, you know, and no one's perfect. And thank God we have the Holy Spirit with us. But I think for us, family is like, we have said our family is called, not just like, yes, you are all called, but like our family is called to, you know, bring heaven to earth and in the time that we're here. Like, and to say that like, in the areas we've lived, and we have a lot of friends who aren't saved and my whole family. And so it's really cool to see our kids be used by God, like, and hey, you're a light, like, and to hear them have conversations with my parents, like, or other people that are like, non-believers against it, or, you know, and just to have like, hey, we're gonna, this is who we feel called to be. And this is who we feel God has created us to be as a family unit. And I think our vision for that is, that we have watched him use us for like in different ways, but as a unit and know what's coming in this next season, like they're going to be a part of. It's not just like us saying, hey, we feel like God's calling Josh and I. It's like, no, our families, I see this as generational and the legacies to come of like what that's going to look like.
Yeah. I love that.
No, I 100% agree with everything you said. And I think one of the biggest ways that the Nolzes, like how do we bring heaven to earth? And I do really believe like the us 4 no more, like when we're at amusement parks, I'll be like 4, because not like 4 golf balls coming, because I mean, we have 11-year-old, 9-year-old, you know, they're everywhere. So I'll just say 4 and my hand's up and they know, oh, I got to get back close to mom and dad. Yeah. Like, so that's how kind of it started. And then, you know, all that stuff. But I would say that
like
whistles.
Culture.
And they know. Yeah, they
know.
Oh, you haven't heard Liz whistle before, guys? It's loud.
Oh, they know it. They
that's the call.
You know what's funny is like I sometimes like I'll whistle, and I can't whistle as loud as she can, but I can literally whistle, and my kids won't even see me, and they hear that whistle, and they literally start to walk towards mom and dad because they know what that whistle means, bringing it.
Yep.
Right. But going back to what I was starting to say is like, how do I feel like we do a good job of bringing heaven to earth? It's as a family. I genuinely feel like we have like huge positive impacts on families. And I watch like my kids and I get like choked up about like literally impact the kids of other families that we're investing in. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like
kids share stuff with like our kids will be with the parents and like the kids will be going to bed and they just left and our kids are saying, hey, they just said very heavy, impactful things that we're like, hey, we've got to talk about this and talk with their like. But parents, the point is that they've created a safe space for kids, like is only God.
Yeah,
right,
1,000%. And y'all's faithfulness to it too.
Yeah,
but I think that's what you were saying about like our family, because even through, and this will tie into what you said, like you said church too, and like health and other things is like it. When COVID happened and so many, God was doing what he was doing in the local church, right? Like, and we love the local church but he was removing the people that were not building their own kingdoms and not his, right? Yeah. So, but for us, it's like, if we're building the kingdom of God and doing it together, right, then as a family, like the church is in our house. Right. So if we can't be and instill in our children and in our marriage, then we have no business, looking after people outside of our home, because what's that going to look like?
Starts,
and
right? Like that's got to be
and yourself. It's at your home, right? And it's within your home. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that we talk about with the kids is like, we could like be going 1,000,000 miles a minute or doing all these things, running missions trips and doing whatever, but like, how's our family?
So good.
So I think that's a big, which turns into the church of like what I was saying of the church for us, especially during COVID, was I believed, and we would say it a lot, that God was bringing the church back to the home and to the family, like in Acts, where like breaking bread at your table, having conversations like eye to eye, like there's so much like for some reason, we were saving for the four walls that was like meant for, everywhere. Never meant for that.
The world.
Right. Yeah. And I think our kids getting to see that like changed really that season, the trajectory of our whole life and spiritually, because we brought church home. We started having our own services, like the four of us. We'd have our own worship. Like one of us would share something, and the kids still sometimes ask for it, like on different days.
They do?
Yeah.
I love it.
The church home. Normally it's like if they're tired and they wake up. But
like, sometimes it's God loves rest.
Oh my gosh.
And when you have a soccer tournament, 50 games on a weekend,
it's
Sunday
real.
might be meant to just chill out, and wake up at 11.
Absolutely.
100%.
So I think it's full circle to what you're saying, especially with your kids. Like the first thing that we talked about in this podcast that just came up, which was the baggage. I think the best way to invest in the kingdom of God here on earth is him restoring that in y'all, which then like lifts them up and restores them to be who they are called to be that much easier, and have because they're going to have their own relationship with Jesus. But how much easier is it if the chains generationally are broken with the Nolz parents before it goes to the Nolz kids? So when they're 18 and even earlier, because they're probably have already encountered Jesus in their own ways, but you know what I mean? They're like, oh yeah, I've caught it from my parents. I caught it from my father who caught it from his father in heaven. Easy. Right. That's like the biggest investment. And then they go out and be, we've talked on Friday what they're doing at school. Like if my kid were to come home and tell me that, I'd be like, I'm doing something right. That's all I needed. I'm like all this suffering, long suffering. No, I'm kidding, but it's so beautiful to hear. And I wanted to say this little, not joke, but this little funny bit. We were at your pool the other day, and you were talking about how teaching them to be emotionally intelligent. And August is choking me in the pool, all that stuff. Just being a kid, which I love. I love having fun with your kids. And then I'm like, and as he's like getting me, he's like, yeah, Juan, I'm much bigger than I was a couple years ago. And I'm like, you're right, bro. Like, I haven't seen you in 2 years. You've grown up. Like, it's like that awareness is like, yeah, I could get it now, man. I'm like, yep, you're right. It was just so smart of him to say. Yeah. And I was like proud of him for a moment, but then I threw him in the water.
Yeah.
So.
It's pretty cool. Like when you go through like parenting and you feel like you're doing your best you can do, and you don't really know honestly until how good you're doing until they're actually adults, because that's essentially what we're raising.
Because no one tells you as parents. It's like the number one thing you do that no one's like, what, your kid's not like, well done today, Mom. Good job, Dad.
Yeah,
you
you're not getting,
you're crushing it.
You're crushing, Mom. You cooked, you laundered, your dad. No. It's like behind the scenes.
When we're seeing like, I've always taught our kids like we were living with the fruits of our spirit, like the fruits of the spirit, love, joy, kindness, peace, patience, self-control, all that stuff. Like that's what should flow out of you. Yeah. Right. And like we say it, but I think like when I see them go to school and I see like August and Braxton, and from their soccer coaches to their teachers in school, like telling us what amazing boys you have.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get emotional here, but like just to see them like how inclusive they are to everyone. Yeah. Right. And like we tell them, it's like, hey, when you go, like, you're a world changer. You're a world changer because you're an environment changer. You're a classroom changer. Like, you go into environments. What do you bring? I bring joy. I bring peace to environments. We teach them that, and like, we're not saying, hey, like, this is what you do. Like, they just go and do it.
Out of the fruits.
Yeah, and I feel like it's because of unknowingly, like you were saying, like you pick up the baggage or like the learned traits of your parents. Like, it's like unconsciously, like we're teaching them that by bringing people into our lives and investing in people, and being intentional with people and being inclusive with people. And now that
are nothing like us,
that are nothing like us, and
don't think like us,
don't think like us, not same nationality, like not same race, like all that, and
still love them.
And that's like they're taking on that without us like having to like, this is what you have to do. They're like
read it out of a textbook or anything. Like, no, it's caught.
This is what they do. So this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
100%.
And they do it way better than we do. But like, I'm like, this is amazing. Like,
second nature.
Yeah.
But that's that. Like, and I think a huge part of that too is like what you were saying with them being so inclusive is that they have felt what it's like to not be included. And there's been some really rough times with them both since they were little of where I'll never forget August at 2. Like, we had a leader at church come up to us and be like, I haven't seen a 2-year-old, like he's has the Holy Spirit, and like and like telling us, and we were like, as parents, you're like, maybe I don't, whatever. But like, it was a really
have you seen him at home?
Yeah, it was a really cool moment, and we like encouraged this person who told us, because we were like, you don't know what you're doing. Thank you for even saying what you're taking the time to say what you said, and but like that he is set apart, and we know that, and that with your kids. I'm not saying that just because we're their parents, but like as parents, when your kids are called and set apart, it's a difficult road. Like, and it is very hard to say to your, joy-filled, loves everyone, the most inclusive kid, when people are like, why are you dancing? Or like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's your problem? And he's like, but I'm just happy.
Just happy. I love that song.
Filled with joy.
You, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
But to not react like, where Josh would be like, so punch him in the face.
It's like, solve all of our problems with violence.
No. And, but like to have that open and continued conversation from 2 to now for the rest of his life, to come to now in every stage, even now again, going like, okay, there are kids again, like here we are at this stage, like not being kind to you, not being inclusive. You don't understand it because you've only ever been inclusive. So
you've only ever been loved.
Right. Yeah. And love others. So like, why doesn't everybody,
he doesn't register. He's like, I don't get it.
Like, why is he mean? Well, maybe he's going through something. Yeah.
Well,
and showing that picture.
And we talk about that a lot, but there's also the part that is the difficult part of parenting too, that has gone like, we could say, well, just think of him, like they pray for, we've taught that, like pray for the kids that are not kind and all those other things. But the biggest part is going like, but you actually don't have to fit in. So like, you actually don't have to be like, so where a lot of times, especially with kids, they'll go, they're thinking, how can I, and as adults, we do this too, right? Like, well, we're feeling left out. There's FOMO. There's this. I wasn't invited to that. Like, how can I, okay, like I'll reach out more, I'll whatever. Yeah. You're thinking of what you can do to feel seen by someone else instead of going, okay, God sees me. I need to stay in the lane. Yes, I can be kind and show the fruits of the Spirit to other people and have empathy and all of that. However, if I'm called to stand out and I'm called to something, that means that I set the tone and that I am the one that that changes the atmosphere. So that's shifted for us going, especially this year, sending them to a Christian school for the first time going, we wrestled with this a lot. And I said, God was tugging at our hearts and we just obeyed. And we're like, there's an urgency for this year. We don't know why. It's expensive. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, but like this year they're going. Yeah. But to step back and go like, what is your biggest fear? What's your biggest fear of this? Like, and a lot of, for me, it was, they're not the kids that are at this school. We are not them. We stand out like a sore thumb in this entire community. As parents, the way we look, the way we dress, the way the way our kids speak, the music they listen to, what they like, all the different things. And so what is this going to look like for our kids, dropping them in the middle of this, And so for us, we just started saying to the kids, I said to him one night, I'm like, God just spoke to me and was like, it's not about fitting in that environment. God has brought us here to change the environment and our family to change what's happening here. And not that it's horrible. I'm just saying like, it's just, and that's how we've lived our lives. Is that like the mission God has put on our hearts and what God's called us to do is so much greater. And it's not an arrogance. It's not putting you above other people. It's that if you are so confident in what God's calling you to do, the other stuff, and that's what's the hardest part about teaching kids, because as adults it's difficult, of like, you're going to keep walking forward and be a game changer of the environment you're in, and you may look different, sound different, and everybody may still be like, and you're not going to fit in, but that's the kingdom of God. Even within the world of Christians, right? Like even in our own, like,
because we make up our own world.
Right. You will stand out and it will feel lonely, but the Bible says the closer you walk with Jesus, it's a lonely road. Right.
100%. I love that.
So that's, I think, like the biggest thing as parents, having to teach, that can be really hard. Josh and I like cry to each other talking at night. They'd be like, and I'll be like, I'm so sad for her. He'll be like, because you hate it when your kid's being picked on, or suffering. It's you want
what's his name?
Yeah,
okay.
right.
I'm gonna go to lunch. I think I need to go to lunch.
What period is he? You guys?
Which one's that?
What
what's
does
the
his
kid?
mom look like?
You give him a death stare.
Oh, that's dad. Okay, let's talk to them. No, I think one of the cool things that I was hearing you guys say that I picked up on. Fear, we'll talk about that in a second, and then faith we talked about just now too, but the fitting in part, you're talking to Enneagram 3 guy, which is the achiever, people pleaser. So literally for my whole life until I got saved, even when I was saved, I was fitting in. I was not being me. God has redeemed fully in the last 6-7 years the quality of like set apart, of like be yourself, of like you're okay as who I've made you to be. Right. And that is a disease and like a issue right now in our culture where so many people are just trying to be someone else or fit in or do this or act or adapt. And they're not being themselves. The hardest thing to do, you realize when you face that reality and that truth in the mirror of like, that's not me. The easiest thing to do is be yourself. The hardest thing to do is continuously not be yourself and try to fit and do that. And it's an anxiety. Yeah, it really is.
Absolutely.
When I got encountered with that, I'm like, why am I doing this? This is so hard. Right. I have this much more room to be myself. And like, whether you take me as I am or not, all good. God loves you and I love you too. So you guys are preaching because I suffered with that for the longest. Yeah. But fear
but
and
I have to say,
what?
You're very different than you were.
Oh, okay.
And it's like God moving in your life and you allowing it to happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Because we were just saying on the way here, like.
And you're set apart.
Absolutely.
And you're championing it. You're like, yes, I am set apart.
And once you dropped what people think about, like the weight of caring, you look at what God's done and is doing.
So good. Thank you. I brought it up on this podcast and I got healed for a while. And then lately again, it was like, I'm good, God. I have no longer fear of man. And then there was again that theme of like, you do a little bit right here. It's like, oh, it's uncomfortable. Don't talk to me
this
there.
Part. Yeah.
This hurts.
Stay away from that.
Yeah, it's like, that was good. You healed 95% of it. Leave that 5%. No, but faith and fear, I think, are two things that we've talked a lot about here. Again, fear of God, fear of man, and faith. This whole Justin has faith in me. This whole Kingdom Partnerships is a faith step. Moving to Dallas is like, I feel we were talking about it literally today again, so I don't think it's a coincidence. But just this this supernatural faith that we can't do for ourselves to do things that are extremely uncomfortable. Extremely uncomfortable. I've always, you guys heard me say, I'm not creative. I'm doing stuff that is creative.
Yeah.
Lord, I have faith.
Yeah.
Like moving to Dallas.
Yeah.
Lord, I have faith. It's 9 months of summer here. Putting your kids
Maybe 10.
in. Yeah, 10. Yeah, something like that. It just started to glisten a little bit. Seeing your kids go into school, I have faith. Your finances dwindle. I have faith. And it's like, we were saying it today where it's like, it's just so hard. And so I guess the question I'm trying to ask, where I've been in this season, this year, or the theme for Year the Nose is what you're doing in faith right now, or what are you guys doing to step out and go, this is out of the boat. This is roaring waters, Lord, but you said step out. So what's up? Like, what is in the books for the Nolzes?
It's funny because it kind of, yesterday we had brunch with this couple and he was asking some of like our story and he literally like looked at us and was like, you guys are crazy. And
that's what I said today too. I want to be crazy.
Yeah. And I like, we both like laughed and I said to Josh after, I said the coolest thing, like, and here's this like lead pastor of like that was walking through and he literally like his face kind of turned red and he like looked at us and was like, no, you guys are like crazy. Like in a great way, but like crazy. And it was just like
so funny.
It was because of the faith. That's what like we were saying. And anyway, you can go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny like the way you asked the question about like the faith and faith with fear, and I think that like throughout my adult life and our marriage, like we've made decisions that have been 100% huge steps of faith. Yeah. And it's okay to have fear in the faith. Yeah. So have faith that God's going to provide. So have faith that God's talking to you, speaking to you, leading you in this right direction down the path that you're supposed to go. There could still be fear. Yeah. Still there. And I mean, right now, currently, I just resigned from my job today. Yeah. Because I feel like God is pulling me in literally today. Yeah. This morning. Yeah. Because I feel like God is pulling me in a different direction. And I feel like the next step in my life, I don't know what it is, but I feel that it's not just going to be a job that's going to collect a paycheck. It's going to be in my calling. Come on. And I have faith in that and I believe in that. And it's scary. Of course, there's fear. Let
me add this in. Yeah. There is no other job. Yeah. So like, there is nothing on the horizon. Right
I haven't even like churched up my resume yet.
We literally made this decision like Monday arrived. It's been like months in the working of like, we going back just to give some context of like moving here for us was like, God spoke to both of us separately and was like, I'm bringing you to Texas, but like the job's going to be the vessel. And because we were like, why would we ever move to Texas? Right.
Dallas,
like, we're like, we live by the beach, like, and,
Florida. Amazing.
Yeah. And God was just like, spoke to us separately. And so when we came out, and I remember being like, he was in this one career for the last 14 years. And we talked about him in ways getting out of that and just like such a people person getting out of like what he was in. And he'd laugh and always be like, how well he was doing financially is like the favor of God. Obviously his work as well, his work ethic, but like also God's hand on his life, but going like, he'd always joke and go like, I think I'm using 2 of my God-given gifts. Like in the entire,
he literally said that. He's like, I think I'm stepping into 3% of my
exactly.
God. Like 3%.
It's like, and you're crushing at 3%. And it's like, God is so much more. But going back to like, just to kind of give more context about the vessel, is like, I felt like God was, all right, he was using the job that I just resigned from to get out of my previous job.
Yeah.
To bring us here.
To bring us to Dallas. And
Yeah.
never, ever, ever,
Would you have moved here
would I ever think I would live in Dallas,
After
Texas.
we had just moved, this is our kid's third school in 3 years.
Third school in 3 years.
And
Right?
third
We're not a
state.
military family.
No.
Like, we don't need to move.
There's nothing.
Right?
No
But,
reason.
Yeah, and like
God.
I said, never would I thought I'd live here. Like, I've always been by the ocean. I've always had a beach within
Virginia
30-minute
Beach, New
drive.
Jersey,
Always,
yeah.
always.
Yeah,
like,
Florida.
and never thought I would leave that. But to literally trust God, and I think you had maybe, I don't know if you mentioned it earlier, but we mentioned it in talking about like when God calls us to be obedient.
Yes.
Right. And going back to like our kids, when we were telling our kids to do things, like we're telling them to do it, but there's always this, especially as they get older, there's always this, but I was just, and I was,
But why?
But I had to, and I wanted to do this first, and like, just be obedient.
Yeah.
But why can't I? There's always this like negotiation. It's like God,
Rationalizing.
you don't need to rationalize. You don't negotiate with God. God calls us to be obedient.
Yes.
That's why we
Right?
teach
So-
our kids like that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
like-
and it's easier to teach it than to do it.
Absolutely.
Right?
You're always a better coach to someone else than you
Oh
are
my
to
God.
yourself.
Oh,
Always.
100%.
You're like,
Absolutely.
this is the best thing for you. And then
Yeah.
you look in the mirror and you're like, I'm not doing that.
I mean, how often, like when
So
we're in,
good.
when we were
I
in
never listen to my
sanctuary,
own advice.
ever.
Like, oh.
How often in sanctuary that I talk about stuff that I do with my kids, and I'm like, I need to do that. Like,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I need to do a better job of doing that. But all that to say is like, bringing it back full circle is like using this as the vessel, right? And then I talk to people, at work, and basically saying, when you're on a vessel, like the vessel takes you to your destination,
Yeah. You have to get
right?
out of it.
And you gotta get off the boat.
Yeah.
You got to get off the vessel, and
Get
that's
off.
really what I felt like God was speaking to me,
So
and
good,
why
man.
I resigned.
Yeah.
Was like the vessel has
huge
brought me
faith
to
set.
this spot.
Yep.
And
Right.
God we've arrived. So like, that's where we are saying is like, God is actually, and that's where the wrestling for the last few months was like, God actually was saying
Hey,
really a few months
yeah.
ago, like,
It's-
you haven't gotten off yet.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this wasn't for life. This was to come and
Yeah.
get
Get
you,
you
but
here.
to
Yeah.
get off. And so,
So
now
good.
it's like the getting off is like,
Yeah.
and
But
that's where
Lord, what's next?
100%.
Like,
100%.
oh, I'm
Like,
not telling you.
logically,
until you get off
the
boat.
world, I need to have this planned out. I need to make sure this is good. And it's like,
Yeah.
he never did that to Abraham, the father of the faith, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, look at the stars we were talking about today. Luke was saying, look at all this. And he's like, dude, I'm 99.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
wife's barren. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And a lot of times he doesn't, and that's like what we've talked about a lot, because I've learned, a lot in my life of like knowing that I can't have both, because the world of wanting to see what's here and continue on, like, right, like with this job, whatever it could be, and going like, God's not going to give you unless
Or
you
show
take the
you,
step of
yeah.
faith, like a lot of times, which is the scary, uncomfortable, all the things you were saying.
Everything.
Like all of those things, he's not just going to be like, oh, I'm going to give you this because like, so for reassurance,
Right.
he's like, Peter, are you going to get out of the boat or not? Right. Like, or if you're not, cool. But like, I'm not going to show you can walk on the water
Yeah.
until you walk on the water.
Literally.
He
Like,
didn't step out with one foot and be like, oh yeah, I can
Yeah.
reach here.
He was like,
Right.
He was like, all right, here we go.
That's
going
good.
for
Oh,
it.
look, it's solid.
right,
Look at that.
exactly.
It's like, God's not going to show you it's solid.
No,
Like,
and
you gotta
that's
do it.
and that's the thing. So I think like, and I said, I believe God honors that faith step.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you have to take that for him to then pour out something
Yes.
beyond.
Yes.
And that's, I think, with this, where it was like, yeah, I mean, the fear part of like, we own a house, we have kids, we have a life, we have bills,
So
we
many
have
expenses,
life,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like your expenses and your finances, and what does that look like for us?
Testimony.
With like ending,
Yeah.
right? And like there's nothing next, and you can only have these conversations with some people,
Yeah.
right? Like
'Cause
this is
they're
why
like,
I'm
you're crazy.
right.
Yeah, this is what I love about this, because we're just real.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
this whole God relationship kingdom sounds great. You see this line with gold on it. It's like awesome, but it's like there's a lot of hard things to get there.
Yeah.
And nothing worth doing is ever easy. And honestly, like I don't even know how to like explain it, but you guys stepping out in faith, first of all, is very encouraging. And secondly, like not even knowing what's going to happen and believing God is the scariest thing in the world. Like, because everybody and everything's going to tell you no. It doesn't make sense, but you're like, I just know that I have to do this.
Yeah.
And that even goes back to your relationships.
Yeah.
Like where and who are you speaking to or allowing to speak to you, and who are you not answering the phone to during those seasons?
Yeah.
Because like that's a huge, even when we moved here,
That's a telltale.
there were a few people that were pretty offended that I did not like
I laugh.
but that I didn't like, that are my close friends, but like that I would have in other seasons probably like talked about it with, or been like, hey, can you pray for us? Like we're trying to sort this out. But like there's a time you have to protect what God is putting on your heart, because there are voices and everyone has their own opinion. And so it's like, that's when you really have to trust that inner circle and go like, I know they want what's best for me and us. I know they know this is gonna call us higher. Are they pointing to Jesus? And like, if they're not, we actually can't even welcome them in this space of even like the process of talking through or even saying,
we'll let you know
us.
how it goes at the end. Like
When you see us, God doing
here, we'll tell you how we got there.
That reminds me of the scripture of, and we said it the other time, I don't know when, but when Jesus looked at Peter, it was like, no, Lord, you can't get betrayed today. He's like, he didn't say, Peter, get behind me. He said, devil, get behind me. Because he could use the closest person next to you that you just said loves you, cares for you, but for whatever moment is having his emotions and his worldly thought get out of the discernment of the spiritual realm of things, the kingdom realm of things, and go, oh, no, this is a God thing. And then they're speaking something. Like I've had that in the last couple of months from very close people, and I just stayed quiet and heard them, and I was like, gosh, that hurts like a dagger to my heart.
Don't get behind me, though.
But I was like, but I'm like, I love you, and I know that's not of you. I've had enough God moments and encounters to know that I have to do this. And I was like, great, love you, thank you. And then moved on and prayed for them and moved on and kept it a little more secret or a little more protected or just a little more at a distance because they're so close to my life that I can't obviously get away from them.
And that's just God like growing you in the relationship. Yeah. Like it's not a cutoff, but it's like, hey, I actually
be wiser.
I should place them over here. Not they actually don't belong here.
Yeah. And wisdom in conversation, wisdom in how you carry the day to day. So yeah, faith versus fear. We've had Luke on here. We talked about fear for the longest. We've had we actually had one person who is a good friend of mine in the investor coaching program that I'm in. Will finding his faith and also facing that fear of like encountering Jesus honestly through investments and stuff like that. So one of the best questions that I always have to give for all my guests is, and I feel like I've stepped into it this year since May, and it's a faith step nonetheless, so to preface, you don't have to have an answer for this, but if you do, fantastic, and let's open up about it, is what is yours, individual or collectively, purpose and your why? Because there's a grace, like the Great Commission is our calling and our vocation. So I never get that mixed up. It is what it is. Disciples of the world, bring Jesus here, bring the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. But what is the specific grace? Like you're talking about stepping out in faith, leaving this thing that you're using 3% in to hopefully do 100% in, even if you don't get paid, let's say, but it's your calling. It's your purpose. It's where you're feeling the passion come out, the God in you come out onto this earth, individually or collectively, if you guys know your whys or your purpose. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, if it's okay, I just want to say one other thing about that faith question.
Yes,
and we'll go back to this. 43-year-old man, right? And we've made some big faith decisions in our marriage, from moving to selling our houses to moving again and to moving again. And it's like a lot of faith steps. Transition. But God has always given, and I think I was telling you about this the other day, he's always, after you make a big faith step, like, okay, God, I feel like this is what you want me to do, I'm going to trust you, I'm going to go for it. He has always followed that faith step with a I got you moment.
Yeah.
Like once you do it, so we're like, see, I told you I got you.
Yeah.
Look, let me prove I got you. Thanks for trusting in me and taking that step fast. I got you.
In so many different ways too. So not even financially, relationally, I get goosebumps healing, talking about it.
Yeah.
All these things.
Yeah. So our why, our what was it? Our why and our
purpose.
Our
why?
purpose.
Yep. I think both are the same. I guess. Yeah. Why or purpose and purpose.
Deep question. Families. What we've talked about.
Yeah. I mean, our why. Like I I truly have and we as a couple have just a passion and a love to like for families and to like help families. How can we help families do life better, parent better? Not that we have it remotely figured out. Yeah. Right. But I'm like, hey, I feel like we can help people with this. Like, let's go. So our passion is like
speaking to our younger selves almost like that. Yeah. Like people that are in different seasons than us. Yeah. But, to avoid some roadblocks like that we ran into that like we can like help not, whether it's marriage, families, kids, like, hey, these are the mistakes we made. Like this is like where we failed. This is where we've come up short and at times. And then I think like that we've talked about that a lot is like the health lane of what that looks like to be a healthy family, like mind, body, and soul. Yeah.
Fitness pals.
And how to like have fun. Josh does this really well. Like he's like the fun carrier of our family and like the silliness and like the and it's a huge thing we've seen in a lot of families. Some who we're friends with, some who we know like just know of, and that we know what's healed us, like from all the therapy we've done, all like the inner child, the like little Liz and Josh, like healing, is fun. Yeah. And is like a lot of what comes out of that is, that tears a family apart pretty quickly. Yeah. Is when life happens, work happens, the stress of the world, finances, like in a lot, it's real. It's not, So for people to be able to have a space and create a space that, again, our kids are a safe space for other kids, but also like we as a family are able to, whether it's personally us or like we are the ones to provide it somehow with other people, whether it's like family therapy, family, but like it's like camp for adults, but for a family. I love that. And there are things like that.
Adults should go to camp. Let's slogan that. Right. Let's slogan that somewhere.
But just to have fun, like, and so much of what I've done in the last 3 years with working with doing courses with Amen Clinics is like, how do you heal your brain? And a lot of that is, yes, therapy, but it's laughter. Yeah. And it's connecting to the Holy Spirit, like 100%. Those two things. And so how can we create that for people, and saving, we met with someone the other day and he was like, we believe in, if you save one marriage, you save a family and you save generations.
So good.
And like, we have been in places in our own marriage where like, if we had stayed living in Virginia Beach, we talked about this openly, like, I don't know that we would still be married today, and like year 6, I don't know that we would, if we didn't have the people, like there's a lot of things we have run into in our marriage that like, by the grace of God, we are still married, but like it's taken a lot of work. Not just remain, but like thrive. Yeah. And that's, I think, where a lot of, unfortunately, families and marriages are like, cool.
Let's just
like,
sustain.
Even if they book in a date night, right?
Just keep it together.
Our kids need it.
The kids will be there till they're 18. Like, we're just going to get to 18. We're just going to get to like those places and like, and there's that place, like you said, God loves rest and honors rest. So like, how do you have to teach that. Yeah. So like, how can we create that for people? Just like in a safe space, in a way to be able to thrive.
And to go and going back to like our why was like, families is like what we're called to do. But going back what she was saying, and when we go back to the 4, like us 4, right? Yeah. If your family like is not strong and not united and not on the same page and living for God and kind of pursuing His greatness in your life, how can you impact the world? Yeah. How can you impact another family? How can you impact a friend? Like, it starts there. Like, that's, like, I firmly believe, like, when God says, on this house, I will build my church. Yeah. The house is your family.
Yeah. 1,000%.
On my, like, if I could reword that, on my family, I will build this church. Yeah. On your family, He will build this church. On your family, Justin, future family, He will build this church. Like,
so good, bro.
Like,
That's a game changer.
Yeah.
I was pulling up my phone because I just want to encourage you guys, and it's also like a little, not little, it's for sure a thing in my heart, like my family. Like every decision I make now as a single person is thinking of that, and I've gotten a lot of that from you guys. Literally in the last 6 years I've been in a relationship, of just like, oh, look at their intentionality in just the words and just what you're saying, and just this podcast is already impacting somebody who's listening to this, and how it's impacted me. Because when you put that and you see the vulnerability and the power of God in that, and then you apply it to your life, and then you start looking at the world, you're like, you're right, this is bad. Because a statistic we hear all the time of 50% of all children in the United States will witness their parents divorce at some point during their childhood. It's 50% of the entire that's millions of people. And we know that's an attack of the enemy. We know that's an attack to people's childhood. Like they grow up different. You talk to anybody who's divorced, it's not fun. It's definitely not a positive thing. I don't care which way you slice it, believer or not. It's not it's not going to grow society. It's not going to do anything beneficial for them. That's not even including
the statistic of people deciding to do it on their own.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is out of relationship with another person,
out of wedlock, and all that.
And well, just like I'm going to do this, like
Single.
for me, right? And I believe this is for me, which is there are so many different ways the family unit can look, right? But also, like, what does that look like for the future, right? And the enemy 100%. Clearly coming after the younger generations and their identity and like what family will look like.
Crazy.
In the future.
Huge statistic. And so I'm excited that the Nolzes are in the front lines of like, we're going to change the statistic. And we're changing it first at home. I'm like a firm believer of like, you got to be good in here, good in there, and then good everywhere will come after that. You can't just go, because you're going to fake it. You don't even know what you're doing. You're just like coming out of an empty place. Right. So I'm so happy that you guys are in the front lines, crushing it, praying, doing it, living it. And I get to be a byproduct of seeing you guys do it. I'm supporting you guys all the way. Just as you guys are supporting me in this.
We love you on your, we love you. Our kids love you. Like you're just
love you.
Been like family since day one.
Nolzes are always going to be family. Like I said, we're going to look at this episode 5 we're at right now. 10 years, August will be what, 18?
Oh, gosh.
19?
Oh, God. He was actually talking about this. Wasn't he talking about this the other day?
Yeah, I picked him up from school. He's like, Mom, if you have another baby, I would only be around for like 6 years.
Oh, I would only be around.
And I was like, where? He's like, then I'd be headed to college. I was like, okay, buddy.
He's like, but I lived with my parents till I was 25.
Yeah.
So trust me, once you start, the way
you'll be back, buddy.
The way rent prices look right now, you're gonna want to stay home. But like even here in DFW,
That's
try. But Mom, I want to go to New York City.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Get
a job.
Yeah.
Talking about cars. So he was like, so do you think that like I'll get your car or Mom's car? I'm like, I think you'll get whatever car you buy. Are you saving money? What are you going to do to get that money for?
We could go, we got to do another podcast and talk about like finances in the family just to learn from you guys. Cause that's always been on my heart too, of just like, God willing, abundance and wealth come into my family, like how to manage that or steward that is the better word with your kids. Cause is giving them everything okay? Is not giving them, and I've heard different people in perspective. So I'd love to hear you guys on the next one.
But yeah,
in a couple months, years, maybe, we'll meet back here. But love you guys. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Of course, love you. Thank you.
Seriously, it means the world to me. Excited to see what's to come for the Nolzes. And
grateful for you.
Grateful for you too.
Love
you guys. Thank you for joining Kingdom Partnership Podcast today. This wraps up episode 5. Stay tuned for things to come. Justin, we officially launched next week. So if you're watching episode 5 now, which will probably be like October when we launch this episode, we're in the making. We're doing things. Yes, sir.
So exciting.
Love y'all. See you soon. Peace.